You have got to hear what Tiffany Stratton just said about Charlotte Flair, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly what she had to say. Because there have been recent reports that have suggested that Tiffany Stratton could defend the Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 41. This is a very likely scenario for a few different reasons. Obviously, Charlotte Flair coming back and winning the Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, she has teased she could go after Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley. She could go after NXT Champion Julia, or, of course, Tiffany Stratton. Now, Stratton, she has certainly hoped that the match has happened. She's publicly talked about how she would love to have the huge showdown, stare down moment, if you will, with Charlotte Flair, one of WWE's biggest stars. The two, they've never faced off in a ring before. And a match with Flair and Stratton, well, that would be years in the making and a dream come true for Stratton. Now, Flair, she returned from injury after tearing her ACL, MCL, and meniscus in December of 2023 in a match against Asuka on SmackDown. She returned at the Royal Rumble, something which WWE had hyped up for multiple weeks through various vignettes. And as a result, Charlotte Flair not only won the match, not only secured a championship match at WrestleMania, but she also did something no one else has ever done. She's also added her name to the history books, and that is becoming the first ever two-time winner of the Women's Royal Rumble match. The Queen, she faced off against some stiff competition alongside fellow former Royal Rumble winners in Bianca Belair and Bayley. On the flip side, Stratton, she is still in the middle of her first run as Women's Champion after cashing in Money in the Bank during the first episode of SmackDown in 2025 on Nia Jax, betraying her once ally and becoming the champion. Now, as we get to this, Tiffany Stratton recently did an interview with SI, aka the takedown of SI, and she talked about a potential match with Charlotte Flair. And this is what she had to say. Honestly, I think we could have a banger of a match. I feel like that's a given. We would probably have one of the best matches on the entire WrestleMania card. She continued talking about how she has always looked up to Charlotte Flair, and this is what she had to say. I got into wrestling because of her. I saw her on an episode of SmackDown one day, and she inspired me. It would mean so much to my younger self if she would be my WrestleMania opponent, end quote. So that's what Tiffany Stratton had to say. As I've touched on before, Charlotte Flair has shown interest in this match. Tiffany Stratton obviously has shown interest in this match. The fan base has shown interest in this match. Now, before Charlotte Flair made her grand return to WWE television, I talked about how I was a little concerned about the way that they were going to go about this. I was a little concerned with how they were going to present Charlotte Flair because in my eyes, Charlotte Flair is better off as a heel than a babyface. She's just a naturally disliked person, or dislikable person, however you want to put it. And Tiffany Stratton is obviously a heel. She falls into the same category, right? If you watch her in interviews outside of WWE programming, she's actually very nice. She comes across as a sweetheart. But on television, man, can she ratchet it up and be a top tier heel. And so, do you go with and this is what I was talking about, like going into the Royal Rumble, it's like, okay, Charlotte Flair, she's a clear-cut winner. She was like a minus 200 favorite, right? Like everyone and their dog knew that she was going to win the Royal Rumble. But how do you get, we know how we're going to get to the match. How do we lay out the match? How do we lay out the storyline? What is the storyline, right? Obviously, outside of Charlotte Flair just winning the Royal Rumble, how do you get Tiffany on the same level as Charlotte Flair? Because that's very difficult. How do you get fans to try to buy into the idea of Tiffany Stratton beating Charlotte Flair and retaining her Women's World Championship, right? Like, that's not the easiest thing to do. And I think most people would agree that Charlotte Flair is going to beat Tiffany Stratton or beat Rhea Ripley. I have no belief that they would realistically do Charlotte Flair versus Julia. I don't see that happening. So I think that's just more of a fantasy, but I digress. So you would do Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton, and Stratton's a heel and Flair's a babyface. That was the best case scenario in terms of this feud, because I don't want to see, and I think most people would agree, who really wants to see a Tiffany Stratton as a heel and Charlotte Flair as a heel and then them two feud with each other, right? Like, I'm not interested in that. Heel versus heel dynamics are weird in general, but like in these two cases, it would be like, can we just get to the finish already? Instead of telling a very interesting story. And I think when it comes to Charlotte Flair, her story, the build up to this match, I think it's very clear cut. You have it where Tiffany Stratton, she is the up and comer. She is the new blood, and she rose up the ranks while Charlotte Flair was on the sidelines. She's here to make a statement that she is not a one-hit wonder, that she belongs here, that she can go toe-to-toe with the very best that WWE has to offer. And starting with Charlotte Flair, who has been the face of the women's division for the last, 10 years or so, that's a statement. And if she can win, if she can beat Charlotte Flair, retain her women's world championship, and do it at WrestleMania on the biggest stage of them all, the biggest event, the biggest PLE of the year, wow, that's a huge, huge moment, huge statement, and a huge achievement for Tiffany Stratton. And then on the flip side, you have Charlotte Flair, returning from injury, trying to get back a championship, doing so against a young lion, and also it inches another mark on her quest to break the all-time record for world title reigns and records, right? John Cena, her father Ric Flair, currently tied at 16 for that record. John Cena obviously going for his to break the record this year. Can he do it? We will see. But if she can do it, and she's, 15-time women's world champion, if you don't include the Divas title. If you count the Divas title, she's at 16, but they don't really recognize her being a 16-time world champion. So we will see. Obviously, the accolades are out the wazoo. She was a former tag team champion with Asuka. She won the Women's Royal Rumble in 2020. She's the inaugural Women's Champion, a Triple Crown champion, and Grand Slam champion, right? She's done it all since training with WWE in 2012, making her NXT debut in 2013, and promoted to the main roster in 2015. Charlotte Flair has done it all in this business. She was part of the very first women's WrestleMania main event. And obviously with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, she has faced the who's who in this business. At one point, she actually had retired what I believe is the women's WWE GOAT in Trish Stratus at SummerSlam in Toronto a few years back. But obviously, Trish, she just keeps coming back. That's not a bad thing. She comes back. She's as good as she was before, right? So that's not the issue. But I'm very, very curious to see the layout of the storyline, the build to this match, and ultimately who goes over, right? I would suggest and predict that it would be Charlotte Flair, but you don't know. You don't know. That's the fun. That's the mystery. So we'll see how it all plays out, y'all. Let me know down in the comments area below. I will see y'all in the next video.